And US President Donald Trump has said he would announce his decision on the Iran nuclear deal today. On Twitter, Trump said he would announce his decision on whether to withdraw from the Iran nuclear deal today at 1800 Greenwich Mean Time. Trump has threatened to withdraw from the deal, which provided Iran with relief from sanctions in exchange for limiting its uranium enrichment capacity, unless European signatories to the accord fix what he has called its shortcomings. Earlier, Trump had tweeted about what he said was former US Secretary of State John Kerry's possibly illegal shadow diplomacy. It was just yesterday when Iranian President Hassan Rouhani warned that if the United States quits the nuclear deal, then Washington will regret it like never before. Rouhani made the statement during a televised speech. Trump's tweet on the announcement of his decision comes as British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson scrambles to save the agreement during talks with the Trump administration in Washington, D.C. Johnson has appealed to the US president not to pull out of the Iran nuclear agreement, saying the deal had weaknesses, but they could be addressed given time. And to bring us more details on this story, I'm joined in by our correspondent live from the United States in Washington. And let's quickly go across to Harry Horton, who's joining me live. Harry, Trump has teased what he expects to do. Is it going to be what we all expect? Will he dump the Iran nuclear deal?
All the signs seem to point towards that. The British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson hadn't even finished his meetings with Trump administration officials when Donald Trump, the president, tweeted that he was ready to make his announcement on the Iran nuclear deal. And certainly the French and German delegations that have visited Washington in recent weeks and tried to persuade Donald Trump to stick with the Iran nuclear agreement, when they left Washington, they didn't sound too confident that Donald Trump was prepared to stick with the accord. So all the signs, all the indications point towards the fact that Donald Trump is set to withdraw from this agreement. He has, of course, long complained about it, called it insane at one point. It was a big talking point during the 2016 US election, was Donald Trump's threat to withdraw from the agreement. Until, of course, he actually makes the announcement, we don't know for sure what he will do. And then the devil will be in the detail. How exactly will the US pull out of this agreement? Will there be some way, some option perhaps for European allies to try and salvage the deal and go it alone without the United States as part of the agreement?
Right. Harry, let's also get into some of the background out here. Trump has threatened to scrap the 2015 accord, saying the Obama administration struck a bad deal for the US. Why does he say so?
Well, Donald Trump thinks the deal is bad for a number of reasons. One of those reasons is he doesn't think the deal addresses Iran's ballistic missile program. He'd like to see more focus on that. He thinks that it doesn't address Iran's wider activities in the region. The US considers Iran to be a destabilizing country involved in lots of different conflicts in the Middle East, and they think that the Iran nuclear deal does nothing to address that. And they also think that the so-called sunset clauses in the agreement are a problem. So in the Iran nuclear deal at the moment, there is a ban on Iran enriching uranium. That clause phases out by the year 2025, and the US isn't happy with the fact that after 2025, Iran can begin enriching uranium again. So they'd like to see all those different parts of the deal addressed. Now, for what it's worth, European partners in the deal have said that they will try and negotiate some sort of side agreement that addresses those US concerns. And that's the argument they've been putting to President Trump over the past few weeks. But from all the indications we've seen here in Washington, it doesn't look as though that sort of side agreement will satisfy President Trump. But as I say, we'll have to wait and see exactly what the president announces when he makes his decision, or makes his decision public, 18 GMT on Tuesday.
So, Harry, that brings me to my next question. UK Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson, he has appealed to US President not to tear up the Iran nuclear deal. Are you saying that will also not have an impact on Trump?
Well, so far it doesn't seem that way. I mean, the UK Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson has been in Washington all of Monday meeting with Trump administration officials. He met with the US Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He met with the US Vice President Mike Pence. But crucially, he couldn't get an audience with the US President Donald Trump. And, you know, as I mentioned earlier, it was before Boris Johnson, the UK Foreign Secretary, had even finished all his meetings with the Trump administration that President Trump tweeted out saying he was ready to make his announcement. So, again, the signs, the indications we have suggest that Boris Johnson's trip wasn't enough to persuade the president to stick with this agreement for now.
All right. Let's come to Iran now, Harry. Iran, of course, has been warning the US against pulling out of the deal. What happens if it actually happens?
Well, we don't know. I mean, that's one of the biggest questions. Will Iran choose to stick with the agreement if the US slaps on these heavy sanctions on Iran? You know, many people in Iran argue, well, what's the point of us being part of this agreement if we're not going to get any of the economic benefits that we were promised with the lifting of these sanctions? Again, the details here will be crucial. If the United States slaps on sanctions, but, for example, allows European companies and European countries to maintain economic ties with Iran, there might be a reason there for Iran to stay in the nuclear agreement with those European countries and China and Russia as well. But it all depends on the detail from the US point of view that we'll hear from President Trump when he makes his announcement.
All right. Also, if we draw a parallel between, say, North Korea, how Trump dealt with North Korea, and how Trump is now dealing with Iran, how do you see that analysis? Do you think the same pressure tactic which actually worked with North Korea so far, will that be able to help with Iran?
Well, the critics of President Trump's move or his anticipated move to pull out of the agreement, they say, look, how on earth possibly can President Trump be pulling out of one nuclear agreement whilst trying to negotiate another one with North Korea? Why would North Korea agree to anything with the United States, given that they've just renegated on this commitment with Iran? That's one perspective. The other perspective says, well, look, actually, North Korea sees itself as a very different country from Iran, so they might not draw any parallels there. Or perhaps the US could even go to North Korea and say, look, this deal we came up with Iran wasn't tough enough. We need to have an even tougher agreement with you for it to be foreseeable in the long term. It certainly makes those negotiations with North Korea more complicated, but for Donald Trump, I don't think he'll lose much sleep over that.
Right. Harry, what are the chances of further bargaining on the deal? I would actually like to ask from Iran's perspective also, if is Iran's economy better off since the nuclear deal?
Well, many people in Iran say that that's not the case. They say that they haven't seen the economic benefits that they thought they would when they signed up for this nuclear agreement. And that is in part, they say, because the Trump administration for the past 12 months now has been threatening to pull out of this deal. So people in Iran say, look, no company wants to invest in Iran because they can't be confident that they can do it for the long term. There's always this ongoing threat that US sanctions might be reapplied at any second. So why would anybody do any business in Iran? So yes, you know, certainly in Iran, many people there say they failed to see the economic benefits of this deal, and for them within Iran, that kind of boosts the argument that Iran should pull out of this deal the second the US reimposes sanctions on the country.
Right. Thank you so much, Harry, for joining us here live on WION. Harry Horton, our correspondent, joining us live from Washington, D.C. Thank you so much, Harry. Moving over, U.S. First Lady Melania Trump has announced a campaign to teach children the importance of social, emotional and physical health. Announcing the initiative at the Rose Garden in White House, the U.S. First Lady said that The BEST initiative aims to promote healthy living using social media in positive ways and combating opioid abuse.
As a mother and as First Lady, it concerns me that in today's fast-paced and ever-connected world, children can be less prepared to express or manage their emotions and oftentimes turn to forms of destructive or addictive behavior such as bullying, drug addiction, or even suicide. I feel strongly that as adults, we can and should be best at educating our children about the importance of a healthy and balanced life. So today, I'm very excited to announce Be Best, an awareness campaign dedicated to the most valuable and fragile among us, our children.
Lauding the First Lady's effort, US President Donald Trump signed the Be Best proclamation, declaring it Be Best Day.
Today we pledge to be best. Best for our families, best for our communities, and best for our nation. And now I am proud to sign the Be Best proclamation, and I think you all know who's going to get the pen.